Well, everybody, welcome back. I told you we're going to have a second video. We are. So, welcome back to JJ's PC Builds. JJ with you once again. Don't forget your drink and snacks, by the way. Before you get started, that way you can pause the video right here, go get your drink and snacks, come back, so that way you're all ready. Now, today, I'm going to take my hat off because, baldness, but we're going to talk about system RAM right here. Okay, now, on the back of the system RAM, you have your codes. Okay, you probably can't see it that well, but I have the codes already. So what we'll do is we'll go to the action screen and I'll show you the codes. So let's go ahead and get this fixed up and go there. Okay, now right here I pulled up the codes for that stick of RAM, which is, and by the way, in the background right here, this is my PC. So it's kind of on a different setting because it's got the 16 gigabyte individual RAM sticks. So this is not really going to help us out anything anyway. But if you use HW info, it could help you out. I mean, you can pull up the summary, and right here on the summary, it'll have the timing. It'll have your timings right here. Also, too, it'll give you your timings down here as well, so you know where your timings are. You can always take a snapshot of it and see what it is before you start your adventure, which would be wise. So, now you know what we're talking about with your timings right there. Or you can do yourself a favor and go on the internet and try to find the timings for your RAM. Okay, you can do that too. So we'll get out of there. We don't need any of that. Make sure it's all off, which it is. Okay, so we know our timings right here. We got our timings. Okay. So if you do this on a capture card, it'll be a lot easier for you. This way I'm saying this is because, you know, we can go and pull up the computer BIOS. You know, I'm showing you the BIOS of a different computer, but it's got the same RAM. Well, not the same RAM. This RAM here. This RAM here. If we go back to the easy mode, we'll go back to your easy mode. This tells me I got one DIMM stick in, which I do. I got it put into the B2 slot. Okay, because on this motherboard, you use the A2 and the B2. Those are where your main, that's how you pair your RAM up, is with the A2 and the B2. We don't need the A2 because, you know, it's right underneath the heat sink, so we use the B2. It works just as good. One 8 gigabyte stick's just fine. Okay. So we go to the advanced mode, and this is an Asus motherboard, the B450M AII motherboard, and it's got the Ryzen 5 5600G, so we don't need a graphics card. I'm just using a 400 watt power supply, the motherboard, the RAM, and the CPU processor. That's it to do this. Not much to mess around with the RAM timings and everything else. But now, if you want to go to set your RAM timings, you can go to AI Tweaker or something similar to it. And if you got the Expo, you can set it up with the Expo and turn it on like so. You know. Or if you got AI Overclock Tuner, you can set it to Expo and it'll have whichever one for your timings. It's good to, you know, the reason why I'm telling you it's good to have the timings of your RAM is because you know the exact timings of your RAM. So when you go to hit like DOCP, you can make sure it matches up with your RAM timings on your RAM stick. Because if it doesn't, then you're going to be in kind of a little bit of a problem. So now that we've seen that, we go down here to the dram timing control. Okay, so now we see everything else is on auto. The dram timing control was 16, 18, 18, 18, and 36. So now we got it all set in stone. We don't need to do much anything else here. Everything else is on auto. So we don't need to do anything else here. Unless we want to take and, change the clock latency or the CAS latency. Which you could. And just leave the rest of the timings just right where they're at. You could mess with the CAS latency a little bit. Let's say if I want to take it to like 14. So I can put 14 there. Now there's two things that could happen with this. One, it could crash when I go to save changes and everything else. It could crash, or it could boot right back up into the BIOS. So let's click OK and see what happens. As you can hear the fan in the background. So we see that it doesn't like the CAS latency to go down to 14. So now we're stuck in a boat to where we can't. We're not really stuck in a boat, okay, but we're stuck at a point where we can't do anything at this point. And this is where everybody gets frustrated and all that. Don't get frustrated. There's a way to fix this. There is a way to fix this. So what we're going to do is we'll turn it on again and see if it'll automatically boot. As you can see, it's still stuck. Now give me a moment. I'm going to reset the BIOS by the little battery and I'll bring you back. Alrighty, now that I brought you back, the motherboard's been reset. As you can see, we're back on once again. Yes, all the timings and everything have been all reset, so DLCP's been disabled. So you can go to the advanced mode, AI tweaker. I always disable the SB clock spread spectrum. Always disable that. You go back in here to your memory frequency. You put 3200 and you put 1600 there. Now, you can always do this. I sometimes will go up and test the RAM at 3400 and I'll put this at 1800. Because you're walking it up 200 megahertz, so you got to up the F clock 200 megahertz. 3200 megahertz divided by 2 is 1600. 3400 divided by 2 is how much? It should be 18. Okay. Your F clock is always divide by 2. That's how it's always good to remember that. Your F clock is always divide by 2. Okay, I have to make a little course correction here. What I meant by your F clock going up by 200, it should have went up by 100. So basically, if you got 3400, it should have been the F clock should have been 1700. Now, if you got 3600, it would have been 1800. Okay, it should go up by 100 for every 200 megahertz you go up. Your F clock should go up 100 megahertz. Little course correction, I do apologize, but I'm correcting it now, cutting into the video just to let you guys know. I did catch it. My mind wasn't thinking correctly, but we caught it. We're letting you know, so let's continue with the video. Now, what we can do is we can go and exit and save changes and reset. I'm saying this for a reason. Because when you're messing with your memory, you want to do it little increments at a time. You don't want to do it all at one time. I've seen people do that, and they sit there and they tell me they can't get back into their BIOS. It's just borking right now. Well, it's borking for the simple fact of that you did it all at one time instead of doing it piece by piece. I like doing it piece by piece. That's just me. So as you can see, it's stable at 3400. So now, oh, wrong one, my bad. We can enable DOCP. And now we can see if that's gonna, right here is where your voltage is for your DRAM. You can always adjust it down. You can do a negative down clock on that, which they don't have it, but there is a way to do it. It's just a little more complicated. So, and you can also too go into your DRAM timing control and make sure it's set here. As you can see, going down to, it won't go down to 14 on the cast latency. So obviously that's about as low as it's going to go for that RAM stick. So that's about as far as you want to go. You don't want to go any further than that. That says at 3200. So basically, your DOCP is going to do you no good on your clock settings. Because it's going to automatically set it at 3200. And if you want 3400 on your memory frequency, then basically you're going to have to leave this on auto. So, if you want to set your memory frequency to 3400, save changes. I'm always going back and forth through this again. You'll notice that I go through this many a times. So now I know I got my RAM. Oop, my bad. I know I got my RAM set at 3400 megahertz. Hit the advanced mode again. We'll double check it and we'll go to AI Tweaker. We're at 3400 and 1800. This is the reason why Expo and DOCP, I leave it on auto. Because if you go and you want to up the frequency to like I did here, you're not going to be able to be in on, an overclock. You're not going to be able to do it. So I leave mine on auto. Now, my RAM is set to the max it'll go. Now, if I want to go to 3600 and test it out, I would suggest, if you're going to do it, you go up in increments, like 3466 megahertz. If you're going to do that. Now you have to get your trusty old calculator out And you'll have to take the 3466 and divide that by 2. Gives me 1733. Right there. So you see, it's not hard. Now what we're going to do is test it and save and exit and reset. We do this over and over until we find where it crashes at. And so far we haven't crashed yet. So we go back to the advanced mode. Now we can go up one more. I know this seems like it's confusing to you, but it's not. We can go to 3533. And right above 1733 should be the next number. 1766. So to make sure that's true, you take 3533. Make sure you got your calculator out. 3533. And divide that by 2. 1766.50. So that's going to be kind of an unstable number. That's going to be kind of unstable. This right here. So I think that's going to be the unstable part right there. Because it's supposed to be 1766.50 by the calculations. So we'll hit exit. We'll save changes and reset and hit OK. If your memory goes unstable, you'll find it. Well, I guess it didn't. I guess I'm lucky. Wow. I guess I'm lucky there. So this is stable. Interesting. I know it's not going to show the total stableness, but what you're trying to do is you're trying to get a parameter between 3200 megahertz and how far you can go upwards. Now, I'm going to take it to 36 and see if it'll hold at 36. So 36 divided by 2, 3600 divided by 2, that'll give you your answer. 3600 divided by 2 should be 1800. Right here. I don't think we can push it past this. So let's find out if it's stable. Don't worry, we can reset the BIOS. It's not going to be a big deal. We'll hit save changes. And we're moving up in the world. Oh, it didn't go crazy. Wow. Nice. We are at 3600 megahertz. 3600 megahertz. I don't think I'm going to push it past that. We are at 3600 megahertz. Solid. So the only way you'll know now if it's unstable in Windows, which I don't think it's going to be, I think it's going to remain stable. So we're using 3200 megahertz RAM. We went all the way up to 3600 megahertz. Well, shoot. What we'll do is we'll end the video right here so we don't make it a long video. So we'll end, I'll give you my conclusions and then we'll go from there. So, alrighty, let's go back to the main screen. Okay. Now, put this over here. I was able to take that one RAM stick from 3200 megahertz all the way up to 3600 megahertz. Now, I know I can do that. It should be pretty good and stable to run on Windows. How I know? Because I did this test before. So, just saying. I already know. I did this test before. Some RAM sticks from certain companies will allow you to go up an extra 400 megahertz. Some will allow you to go up an extra 600 megahertz. Depends on what company it is and how good the silicon is for it. So if you get one that's got really good silicon that you know you can overclock up to, you can get 400 extra megahertz out of your RAM, then it's not too bad. As you can see, I was messing around with different things. I was changing the cast latency, which that created a total crash. But did it kill the motherboard? No. Did it kill the CPU? No. So that's my point. You're not going to harm your system messing with the RAM. I have yet, unless the motherboard manufacturer specifically states don't overclock your RAM, then I wouldn't do it. I would find a different motherboard manufacturer, truthfully. But Asus is pretty good on, allowing certain amount, clocking up to a certain amount with no problem. The only problem I might have with this is I might have to up the voltage a little bit to compensate for the power draw of going up from 32 to 3600 megahertz. But the point is, 3600 megahertz RAM usually sits at CL18, cast latency 18. Now, me taking 3200 megahertz and moving it up to 3600 megahertz at CL16. So the cast latency I kept at 16 instead of 18. You see the balance now. That's the whole part of overclocking, is to be able to overclock until it becomes unstable, and then you back it off a little bit to where it stabilizes, to where you can go on Windows and get that extra performance you're looking for. I know a lot of people don't like overclocking their RAM, but it is possible. I know some people would just say, you know what, why don't you just go buy new RAM? Well, it would be nice to go buy new RAM that would be at that margin. But when you get a consumer, and I always look from the consumer point of view, when you got the consumer not being able to go spend that extra $150 to go get that RAM, or $200, depending on which motherboard, which DDR series they're on. So, you can spend $250, $300 in getting overclocking RAM. Or, you can look at the RAM that you got and kind of tweak it a little bit. Not too much. Take it up in 100 megahertz increments if you have to. And see how far you can take it up. And then write it down, how far you went up compared to what you started with. And then find the middle part of it. Okay. So, me, I go right from 32 to 3400. I could go to 3500 or 3450 or 3466. Call it right in the middle and be done. I just think myself 3400 is a nice sweet spot for this RAM. Yeah, it's only like 200 extra megahertz. But, if you want to push it, then you can go and push it up to 3500 megahertz or 3600. If you want to keep it at 3600 and it's stable for you, go for it. This is DDR4 RAM, guys. This is not DDR5. DDR5, you could probably get away with it for, the same amount of megahertz, like 200 to 400 megahertz, depending on what the manufacturer puts out there. Just take it up in 100 megahertz at a time. Make sure you're adjusting your F clock as you go up. Make sure you're adjusting your temperatures. I mean, not your temperature, your voltage as you go up. 1.350 is max voltage you ever want to. You don't want to go past that. So, You can also undervolt your processor, your RAM, but then it becomes unstable. So it's not like a CPU. So you can't get that stableness by lowering the voltage. But if you take the voltage up too high, then you can wind up burning out your RAM stick. So parameters, don't go over 1.350 or whatever the recommended for right here. All you got to do is read, and this one says 1.36 volts. Don't take it above that. If it says 1.36, don't take it above it. Clock timings, you can leave them on auto and then just manually set your RAM, which I recommend. Don't mess with the clock timings. Leave it on auto and just adjust the frequency up and up. I'll take you back one more time and show you why. Okay, we're still here. This right here, all you got to adjust is your memory frequency and your F clock. There's only two things you got to adjust. Leave everything else on auto. Leave everything else on auto. You don't need Expo or any other that other stuff, because this keeps a constant timing. It keeps it continuous and constant. So it's not fluctuating. It keeps it right there at its top. And you run it continuously like that. So me, I would go on this RAM. I probably could go 3533, 3466, or just leave it at 3400. And then drop this down to 17. How I know that? What you do is you get your calculator out. Very simple. You take your 3400 and you divide it by 2. Gives you 1700. Then after you did that, then you hit exit, and then you save changes and reset. Hit OK, and let it cycle through. And once it does, boom, it'll come back up for you. See? Hit the delete key, and you're back on it. So the RAM is set at 3400 right here. 3400 megahertz. Done. Don't need to mess with anything else. So as you can see, guys, there's nothing to setting your RAM. Okay? There's only two things you got to worry about. One, your F clock, and two, your, the frequency, the memory frequency. Take it up in small increments at a time. And if it gets to the point to where if your computer won't boot up, then take the battery out, wait 15 seconds, put the battery back in. It's on the motherboard. There's a little battery. So you take the battery out, wait 15 seconds, put the battery back in, reboot your computer, go back into the BIOS, and just set everything back up. But before you go and change anything, I suggest you go through the BIOS and see all your settings that you got in there, and make sure you you write everything down or take a picture with your phone of all the pages in your BIOS, so this way if you get to the point to where you have to reset, at least you know for a fact how you had all your settings before. But in order to get it for your PC to run like top shelf, you have to experiment with it. There is no getting around just leaving it run as is, because there's many things you can do to get more performance. That's if you want more performance. Or if you got a motherboard that you don't have all these extra little, tricks that you can do on the motherboard, then there's nothing you can do. That kind of motherboard is just set on a turbo basis and done. There's no other to that motherboard. Because usually with, your non-clockable CPUs, they're usually on a non-clockable motherboard. The only thing you can clock on that is putting it on a turbo. There's a little button in there, you can put it on a turbo. But that's it. There's nothing to that motherboard. But to this B450, like I showed you guys, I'm going to tell you like this. This B450 is no different than the B550 that I got. Except for there's a couple little extra things on the B550 that the B450 doesn't have. But it's still clockable. And if you want to experiment with something, then, you know. But that's my conclusion to it, guys. There's nothing to it. Don't be scared of your BIOS. It's not going to bite you. If you want to know any more about, you know, what other things you can do to your BIOS, just let me know, and we'll do when we do a live video, then we'll just bring this up again. I'll leave this set up so that way, in case you guys want to bring it up, let's say on a live feed, then I can just turn it on, set it in there, and say, okay, well, what do you want to know? Remember, one thing, not all motherboards are the same. Different companies set up their motherboards a different way. This is an Asus motherboard, and this is what you can do with an Asus motherboard as far as your RAM. Me, I'm gonna be totally dead honest with you guys. Do not touch the timings. You don't really need to touch the timings. Just leave it on auto. Let the computer decide, and just adjust the clocks to get your better performance. That's all I do, and my performance comes out great, so I don't have a problem there. But I know you guys are going to kind of be curious about it and all, and try it out, and you do at your own risk. I'm going to tell you that. You do at your own risk. But anyway, guys, I'm going to get up out of here. This is video number 2 for today. And don't forget, we got Friday and Saturday, which Friday is graphics card nightmares, and Saturday we got the live feed. Don't forget about that. But if you enjoyed the videos, then subscribe. I know I always say at the end, you know, for everybody to subscribe, but I got to try it because I'm like 25 subscribers away from hitting the 500 mark and getting up there and moving forward, and hopefully we get 25 more today. It would be awesome, for sure. So, subscribe, put a like on the video, and don't forget to turn on your notification bell so you know when I post the next video. Until the next time, in the next video, we will see you on the next one.